Before Harrison Ford dusts off his fedora and rethreads his trusty bullwhip for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, we're looking back at the film that launched one of the most iconic action-adventure franchises in Hollywood history, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The brainchild of George Lucas and his close friend Steven Spielberg, their collective vision for Dr. Henry Walton Indiana Jones Jr. evolved from their love of old adventure serials. They saw Indy as an American equivalent of James Bond, an explorer who uncovers artifacts and punches Nazis, instead of fighting for Queen and country and sleeping with the enemy. After Ford's scruffy nerf herder from Star Wars, Han Solo, became frozen in carbonite at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, the actor began searching for a project to boost his rising star to new heights.
You want me to stay because of the way you feel about me?
Yes! You're a great help to us. You're a natural leader.
No! That's not it.
Fortuitously, Lucas had been toiling with ideas to introduce audiences to a rough-and-tumble archaeologist since 1973. With the help of a few friends, Lucas and his team were finally ready to crack the whip on Indy's introduction.
So unnecessary.
Lucas began focusing on Indy's first adventure after wrapping up the coming-of-age comedy drama American Graffiti. Inspired by serial dramas like Buck Rogers, Zorro's Fighting Legion, Don Winslow in the Army, and the 12-episode Fawcett Comics adaptation Spy Smasher, Lucas longed to thrust a lion-hearted hero into danger and mystery like the champions of his youth. When he failed to obtain the Flash Gordon rights for an Interstellar adaptation, he put the idea for Indy on the back burner and blasted off to a galaxy far, far away for Star Wars: A New Hope.
Chewie here tells me you're looking for passage to the Alderaan system.
Yes, indeed. If it's a fast ship.
Fast ship? You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
By the time 1975 came around, Lucas was ready to share his idea with Philip Kaufman, a fellow director and screenwriter. Initially, Lucas named the concept The Adventures of Indiana Smith for his Alaskan Malamute dog.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
The duo began exploring the character, tooling with his background, and thirst for knowledge and globe-trotting escapades. After working on the story for 2 weeks, the pair made several changes to the original concept. While they kept Lucas's idea for Indy to appear as a dreamy college professor who moonlights as an acquirer of ancient artifacts, Indy's original image was more playboy than a pioneer. Lucas pictured Indy as a nightclub patron who posed as a thirst trap for women on the dance floor. However, Kaufman didn't see Indy as the club rat type when he wasn't triggering traps or absconding with priceless idols. After racking his brain for an object that would capture the imaginations of millions for Indy to pursue, he suggested the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred chest said to contain the tablets of the Ten Commandments, after Moses brought them down from Mount Sinai.
And if you put the staff in a certain place at a certain time of day, the sun shone through here and made a beam that came down on the floor here and gave you the exact location of the Well of the Souls.
Beyond serving as a vault for the tablets, the Ark of the Covenant is one of the most priceless artifacts in any religious culture. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, the contents of the mythical chest could grant any army unfathomable power. This feature makes the Ark a formidable weapon for flag flyers and tyrants alike, capable of turning any military force into orchestrators of oblivion. Kaufman imagined this power in the hands of someone like Adolf Hitler, bringing the concept of Raiders of the Lost Ark one step closer to becoming a reality.
Let us toast our success in the desert, to the Ark, when we are very far from here.
Seeing his friend's passion for the project, Lucas wanted Kaufman to direct his Indy picture, but Kaufman's work on the Western project, The Outlawed Josie Wales, took precedence. Feeling trapped between a rolling boulder and a hard place, Lucas tabled the Indy project to focus on his generation-defining Star Wars. In 1977, while vacationing in Hawaii on a beach near Mauna Kea, Lucas invited Steven Spielberg to meet him and discuss upcoming collaborations. Spielberg wanted to go behind enemy lines for a Bond movie, but Lucas pitched him The Adventures of Indiana Smith instead. Several months later, Spielberg accepted the gig, with more changes to the story and characters soon to come. One of Spielberg's first orders of business was to hire Lawrence Kasdan to write the script. Kasdan was as green as they come when he signed on to write Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Spielberg vouched for him, and Lucas enjoyed his script for Continental Divide, the 1981 romantic comedy starring John Belushi, Blair Brown, and Alan Garfield.
Do you think I like it here, for Christ's sake? I got no liquor, 9 cigarettes, and a grease monkey for company. I want to stay here only marginally more than I want to die trying to escape.
Writing sessions for Raiders of the Lost Ark were intense. According to several reports, Lucas, Spielberg, and Kasdan took 5 consecutive 9-hour days to pen Indy's inaugural Odyssey. With tempers flaring, excitement in the air, and the fundamental principles of a legendary character to craft, the trio shouted, bargained, and brought out the best in Lucas's lead for a serial-style superstar. All 3 creatives had different visions for Indiana's identity and talents. Before ironing out the kinks, Lucas envisioned Indy as a martial arts-wielding womanizer. Meanwhile, Spielberg thought a gambling problem and alcoholism would complicate Indy's background. However, Lucas wanted Indy to command respect and be a role model for young viewers. Kasdan had his work cut out for him. How do you combine Lucas and Spielberg's ideas and still make Indy a charismatic figure and hero you'd be willing to follow headlong into certain doom?
I don't know, I'm making this up as I go.
Kasdan initially wrote Indy as an archaeologist who doubled as a grave robber, selling memorabilia and trinkets to help fund his expeditions. Kasdan ditched the sleazy Tomb Raider angle after realizing it would be challenging to explain Indy's travel expenses and access to remote locations around the globe. Clearly, Indy needed to be more upstanding than initially planned. After trimming potential action sequences, adding a romance plot between Indiana and a well-connected woman named Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen in the final version of the film, and introducing Indy's French archaeologist rival, René-Émile Belloc, played by English actor Paul Freeman, Kasdan completed the screenplay.
Next time, Indiana Jones, it'll take more than children to save you.
As challenging as it was for Lucas, Spielberg, and Kasdan to find common ground, the difficult task of bringing Raiders of the Lost Ark to screens was only beginning. With a screenplay locked and loaded, the project needed a studio to foot the bill for Indy's excursion into the unknown. Lucas shopped the package to several studios, but no one wanted to commit. Hesitation to partner with Lucas came from the filmmaker's demands. Lucas wanted the studio to pay for the movie outright. He also wanted total creative control of the film and the licensing rights to any sequels. These stipulations raised a red flag for potential participants, given that Spielberg had a reputation for going over schedule and over budget. Lucas would only make the movie with Spielberg in the director's chair and kept searching for a studio that would meet his demands. After knocking on a few doors, Michael Eisner of Paramount Pictures met with Lucas, and the pair arranged a compromise that satisfied both parties. After producer Frank Marshall joined the project to oversee scheduling and budget, core production and design team members assembled. Cinematographer Douglas Slocum and production designer Norman Reynolds eagerly signed on, alongside Michael Kahn as the film's editor. Pre-production for Raiders of the Lost Ark was swift. The schedule could have afforded the team more wiggle room, and Spielberg wanted to complete the process ahead of the agreed-upon deadline. With concept art steadily coming to life and more extensive set pieces built to scale, the time to cast the film's intrepid hero had arrived.
Who knows? In 1,000 years, even you may be worth something.
Son of a bitch.
Lucas wanted an unknown actor to play Indy. However, the preconceived plan to turn the exploits of Indiana Jones into a franchise meant whoever signed on needed to agree to a multi-film contract. This detail narrowed the pool, though it always encouraged the team to consider a wealth of budding talent. Saturday Night Live alums Bill Murray, Steve Martin, and Chevy Chase were considered, in addition to actors like Tim Matheson, Jack Nicholson, Nick Nolte, Jeff Bridges, Sam Elliott, John Shea, Nick Mancuso, Peter Coyote, and Harry Hamlin. Conversations about these actors leading the franchise lasted briefly, especially after Tom Selleck became a possibility. Lucas's wife, Marcia Lucas, was a fan of Selleck's work and thought he'd be perfect for the part. However, Selleck's obligations to the CBS drama Magnum P.I. made participating impossible. The search continued with Selleck and his signature mustache out of the running. Spielberg then decided to throw Ford's name into the ring, despite him being a well-known actor. Ford was jazzed about the project, but would not accept the gig lightly. Ford negotiated a 7-figure salary, a percentage of the gross profits, and the option to rewrite dialogue if an aspect of the character didn't gel with his interpretation. After signing a 3-film contract, Ford started hitting the gym, transforming into a dashing hunk you'd find on the cover of a steamy bodice ripper novel.
I've been blessed with this body. Thanks for noticing.
After Ford joined the project 3 weeks before principal production began, the film needed a female lead to play Marion Ravenwood, a tough-as-nails woman of her word to match Indy's charisma, bravery, and bold sense of adventure. Marion and Indy's on-again, off-again courtship is the stuff of legend, and the search for an actress to play the part was difficult to manage. At the start, Lucas wanted Deborah Winger to play the role, but she refused. Spielberg proposed the part to his girlfriend, Amy Irving, but her schedule kept her from participating. Sean Young played Marion during the screen tests. However, the role ultimately went to Karen Allen, whose role in National Lampoon's Animal House helped make her an obvious choice.
Boy, you're something!
Yeah, I'll tell you what! Until I get back my $5,000, you're gonna get more than you bargained for! I'm your goddamn partner!
Another fascinating casting story for Raiders of the Lost Ark involves Salah, a well-connected family man known as the best digger in Egypt. Danny DeVito considered the role, but his schedule for the ensemble comedy series Taxi kept him from joining the cast. Thankfully, Welsh actor John Rhys-Davies was game to aid Indy in his quest for the elusive artifact.
Sorry, Indy.
The core Raiders cast was ready to make cinematic history, with Paul Freeman playing the snide villain Balak, Ronald Lacey as the Nazi interrogator Top, and Alfred Molina making his leap to the silver screen as Satipo.
No time to argue. Throw me the idol, I throw you the whip.
Give me the whip!
Adios, señor.
With a tight schedule to keep and a budget to maintain, Spielberg chose his filming locations carefully. Principal photography for Raiders happened on site in La Rochelle in France, Tunisia in North Africa, Hawaii, and Elstree Studios, England, where experienced artists and technicians who worked on Star Wars were eager to contribute to another epic for Lucas and his team. Filming for Raiders climbed to $100,000 daily, plus crew salaries and extraneous equipment expenditures. Due to the high dollar amount, Spielberg reduced the takes for each scene. Thankfully, everyone working on the film understood the assignment, following every instruction to the letter, so Spielberg could have his pick from the prudent pile of material.
Any questions then? No, okay, that's it for the day then.
Unfortunately, all the careful planning could not keep the famous Well of Souls scene from derailing the meticulous timeline. The scene required more snakes. However, there wasn't enough anti-venom on the set, and Stanley Kubrick's daughter, Vivian, outed the production by calling the RSPCA. In addition to pointing out the meager supply of medicinal materials, Vivian told the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals that cast and crew members had crushed snakes beneath their feet while traversing the set. Production on the film shut down for a full day before Spielberg could rearrange the location for the film's fork-tongued co-stars. While Ford embraced the 6,000 tangles of writhing knots, Karen Allen remained unimpressed. Allen's wardrobe required her to wear a white evening dress, offering little protection from pythons that latch on when they strike. After a few close calls, the scene's animal handler, Steve Edge, shaved his legs, slipped into the dress, and finished Allen's footage. There's even a story about Spielberg throwing tarantulas and snakes at Allen's head to capture genuine screams from the actress. The experience scarred Allen, causing her to become suspicious each time Spielberg wasn't in plain sight. It's a fact that Allen hated aspects of working on Raiders of the Lost Ark. As if the experience with the snakes wasn't enough, Allen despised the catacombs action sequence involving Indy and Marion escaping incarceration from a tomb populated with mummified remains. Tom Smith, who fabricated the mummies, reached out to the London College of Surgeons for real skulls to get his models as close to the real thing as possible. After many hours of careful construction, Smith assembled a mass of decomposing bodies, each more hideous and lifelike than the next. The scene took about 9 days to film, with bodies falling on Allen with every take. The less than ideal filming condition came after nearly 2 weeks of snake torture while filming The Well of Souls. After the production moved to Tunisia, where Spielberg planned to shoot the film's Egyptian scenes, tragedy struck. In addition to extreme weather conditions, including heat of 130 degrees Fahrenheit, over 150 crew members, including Ford, became sick with amoebic dysentery. Because the cure for dysentery isn't as simple as hitting reset on the Oregon Trail, Spielberg had no choice but to let the sickness run its course. Thankfully, Spielberg was one of the lucky few who remained unaffected, so he soldiered on.
Bad dates.
Meanwhile, Spielberg's budget concerns increased. Delays and last-minute revisions to the script cost the team money, forcing Spielberg to reduce scenes he'd been planning for months. Imagine spending weeks training for an epic fight scene, only to have the altercation shortened to a brief scuffle in the sand. Despite the brutal weather, not everyone who showed up for the film got their moment in the sun. As part of a quick change to the script, Spielberg reduced the number of workers digging for the Ark from 2,000 to 600. Money can buy many things in Hollywood, but time on a movie set comes with an intimidating price tag. The next stop on Spielberg's Raiders production tour was Hawaii, where the filmmaker encountered more setbacks, including wildlife fatigue, filming location substitutions, and more changes to the script.
There's nothing to fear here. Scares me.
Thankfully, some improvised scenes resulted in more robust character development, including Marion using her ability to drink men under the table, to disarm Belloc, and concealing a weapon in her evening gown. These scenes help demonstrate Marion's wit and resourcefulness, making her far more than a prototypical damsel in distress.
You Americans, you're all the same. Always overdressing for the wrong occasions.
You don't need me to tell you that an epic hero requires a monumental score to play alongside his death-defying acts of daring do. Lucas and Spielberg's golden idol, John Williams, provided the music for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Williams became enchanted by the opportunity when Spielberg said the score needed to be unconventional and exciting. Knowing he could push the limits of his skills and craft a score as fearless as the film's lion-hearted champion, Williams began writing some of the most memorable themes in cinema. Even if you're not a film buff, people recognize the Raiders March when they hear it. The song's arrangement resulted from a collaborative effort between Williams and Spielberg. At the start, Williams presented Spielberg with 2 melodies.
And so he had 2 choices, and I think my only input was to say, can't you use both? And he did. He made the latter the bridge, and he made the former the main theme.
Both sections complemented each other perfectly, providing Indy with a rousing composition to accompany his thrilling expeditions. Williams reworks the Raiders March piece multiple times throughout the film. Listening closely, you'll hear sections of the song repurposed for other exciting scenes, including when Indy searches for Marion in a cluster of wicker baskets, the Nazi car chase, and Indy's aircraft battle with a giant Nazi mechanic. Williams's musical catalog is the stuff of legend, though there's a case for Raiders of the Lost Ark being among his best efforts.
When I wrote the music for Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think I understood that that was to be the first in the series. And I didn't know where this love story was going to go, if anywhere, you know.
While bringing Williams aboard is one of the best decisions Spielberg could have made, allowing Ford to perform many of his own stunts is something the filmmaker regrets. At Ford's insistence, the actor performed several of his character's physically demanding and dangerous scenes, enduring multiple injuries throughout production. In the mostly improvised scene involving Indy's fight with a hulking Nazi mechanic beneath a moving aircraft, poor planning of the vehicle's path along the runway led to a wheel running over Ford's foot. 40 crew members raced to Ford's aid, attempting to remove the wheel before it could do any permanent damage. This incident is one of Ford's many altercations involving planes.
Holy smoke, my friends! I'm so pleased you're not dead!
In 1999, the actor and pilot needed to make an emergency landing in a riverbed. In 2000, Ford's Beechcraft Bonanza was blown off a runway. In 2015, Ford crashed his World War II-era two-seater onto the green at Penmar Golf Course in Southern California. Perhaps rival relic hunters and Nazis aren't Indy's greatest nemesis after all.
Damn it!
To help create the film's engaging effects, Spielberg turned to Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic studio, favoring practical effects over digital assets. Spielberg was hesitant about crowding Raiders of the Lost Ark with too many impractical elements. If Raiders of the Lost Ark was going to feature supernatural beings from beyond our realm, they needed to look damn good. Knowing that ILM could deliver, Spielberg trusted special effects guru Steve Gawley to create the film's epic finale, where Belloq, Dietrich, and Tot open the Ark, revealing a nightmarish torrent of tortured spirits. To create the effect, Gawley dressed an army of puppets in robes, submerged them in a cloudy water tank, and shot the effect in front of a blue screen. Meanwhile, a Lucasfilm receptionist swung from a suspended wire while dressed as a banshee for any close-up shots of the disturbing souls.
I didn't get rid of the band and banshee by smiling at them.
After layering the footage with more horrific imagery, the contents of the Ark were ready to melt some faces, literally. Often, less is more, and in the case of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Spielberg and ILM needed to pump the brakes on taking some effects too far. When it came time for Belloq, Tot, and Dietrich to die, the team needed to mask their efforts to avoid an R rating. The Motion Picture Association of America found Belloq's demise particularly disturbing. Belloq's head explodes in the film as the ancient spirits swirl around him. Before the team obscured the effect with flames, Spielberg used explosives, shotguns, and air cannons to blow the villain's head to smithereens. The mold of Belloq's head, filled with blood bags and giblets, went everywhere, coating the set in viscous fluids and meaty chunks. The MPAA would have nothing of it, without changing the film's rating. Thus, the scene was changed, though it remained as iconic as ever.
Don't look right! Keep your eyes shut!
Raiders of the Lost Ark debuted in theaters on June 12, 1981, securing the #1 spot by the week's end. The film whipped up $8.3 million in ticket sales, becoming a pure sensation. Theatergoers and critics delighted in Indy's first adventure, with some calling the film an instant classic. After earning upward of $390 million worldwide, the legacy of Raiders of the Lost Ark knows no bounds. Spielberg's globe-trotting thrill ride helped launch one of the most influential action franchises in Hollywood history, paving the way for 4 sequels, a television series, video games, action figures, Lego sets, board games, and more.
Now your fears have a name. The Indiana Jones Adventure, new at Disneyland.
The cultural impact of the Indiana Jones franchise sits proudly alongside monolith properties like Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, and Ghostbusters regarding fan fervor, mass appeal, and cosplay opportunities. Celebrated as a cultural touchstones in several territories, Indy is one of 2 characters from the film to achieve lasting appeal to the masses. Despite being uncomfortable with aspects of her character, and even lobbying for rewrites to alter her motivation throughout the adventure, Karen Allen's Marion is seen by many women as an action icon to aspire to. Allen still receives letters and comments from fans telling her how Marion helped change the game for female heroes on the silver screen, securing her place in Hollywood's history books as a bona fide badass. While I refuse to rank the Indiana Jones movies before we've had a chance to revisit them all,
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes!
it's difficult not to marvel at the movie magic happening in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not only does the film hold up, it's aged like a fine wine. I wish I had more time to dig into other aspects of this incredible film, but we've covered a good spread. Raiders of the Lost Ark is an innovative product of passion for filmmaking. When I hear the stories behind the film, how difficult the filming conditions were, and how actors and crew soldiered through sickness and snakes.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I can't help but feel inspired. The film carries a creative anti-Nazi stance while remaining in its lane to show audiences a good time. Not every film can do that.
You don't know what they've got there.
Well, I know what I've got here.
You can only get movies like The Mummy, The Rundown, The Goonies, Romancing the Stone, and The Jewel of the Nile, with Raiders of the Lost Ark setting the bar for explosive action and imagination. Spielberg has given cinema many gifts throughout his storied career. Still, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a glittering jewel in the filmmaker's ornate crown. The chemistry between Ford and Allen paves the way for romances like Rick O'Connell and Evelyn Carnahan of The Mummy fame, establishing couples that shine beyond the big screen. Raiders is the movie that keeps giving 40 years after its release in theaters. With Indy returning for one last adventure in James Mangold's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, there's never been a better time to revisit this masterclass of action filmmaking. After foiling a Nazi plot to unleash the power of the Ark of the Covenant on the world, the intrepid archaeologist Indiana Jones is heading beneath the Pankot Palace in India to recover the mystical Sankara stones from the evil Thuggee cult, led by the deranged priest Mullah Ram. This mission is all in a day's work for Dr. Henry Walton Indiana Jones Jr., whose heroism is becoming a legend worldwide after his thrilling adventure in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Grab your trusty braided kangaroo leather whip, bury your entomophobia deep, and bring your appetite for chilled monkey brains, because we're looking back on the second chapter of Lucasfilm's Indiana Jones franchise, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
So unnecessary.
When executive producer and story writer George Lucas teamed up with Steven Spielberg for the Indiana Jones project, the creator of the Star Wars universe said he'd imagined Indy's journey as a trilogy. Believing in his friend and collaborator's vision, Spielberg assumed there was a plan to carry Indy through a three-part adventure. Unfortunately, there was no such thing. Much like Indy when he's in a tight spot, Lucas flew by the seat of his pants when drumming up ideas for the whip-wielding hero's epic excursions into the unknown. Acting as a prequel to 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom finds Indy in 1935, before the Nazi threat goose-stepped onto the scene. Temple is tonally darker than Raiders, featuring themes of slavery, cultism, dismemberment, and human sacrifice. When asked about Temple's volatile vibes, Lucas and Spielberg said the film's mood is likely the result of them both experiencing relationship trauma. Lucas was going through a divorce with his ex-wife Marcia Griffin, while Spielberg was exiting his union with music executive Kathleen Carey. Both men were in a vulnerable place and chose the Temple of Doom project as a way to exorcise their inner demons.
I'm all right, kid.
Initially, Spielberg considered bringing Karen Ellen's Marion Ravenwood back for another adventure, with her fabled father, Abner Ravenwood, introduced as a part of the plot. Wanting to hit audiences with a rollicking set piece from the jump, Spielberg and Lucas envisioned a motorcycle chase scene on the Great Wall of China, with story elements revolving around China's mythological Monkey King, from author Wu Chang-en's 16th century novel Journey to the West. When China refused to allow filming at the legendary location, the duo returned to the drawing board.
I'm gonna save him! He can take care of himself. He needs...
When their first two ideas failed, Lucas composed a treatment that could take Indy and his companion to Scotland, where a haunted castle would invite the fedora-hatted hero into another spooky setting. However, Spielberg needed a break from the supernatural after co-writing Poltergeist, and having Indy encounter phantoms during the Raiders of the Lost Ark finale. Ultimately, Dr. Jones escaped to India, where a murderous cult welcomes the reign of Kali, the consort of Shiva and goddess of time, change, death, and destruction.
You could get killed chasing after your damn fortune and glory.
Maybe. But not today.
After settling on a location for Indy's next expedition, Lucas and Spielberg contacted Raiders of the Lost Ark co-writer Lawrence Kasdan to help write the new screenplay. Surprisingly, Kasdan wanted nothing to do with the project. After hearing about the film's darker direction, Kasdan balked at the themes associated with Indy's subsequent undertaking, calling the pitch ugly and mean-spirited. Kasdan declined the invitation to send a cinematic icon into the Temple of Doom.
You'll be back over here in 5 minutes.
I'll be asleep in 5 minutes.
5. You know it, and I know it.
Kasdan recognized that Lucas and Spielberg were channeling aspects of the stress brought on by their respective losses into the project, and left them to it.
Oh, it's gone. Bye-bye. Woo, see ya.
Once it became clear that Kasdan was uninterested, Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz picked up their pens. With an extensive background in cultural aspects of the film, the pair relished sending Ford's rough-and-tumble character to India for a cult-related conflict. After hearing Lucas and Spielberg's ideas for the story, Huyck and Katz cherry-picked elements of each, arriving at a plot that involved Indy retrieving a sacred relic from a power-hungry cult leader.
Soon we will have all the 5 Shankara stones, and the Thuggees will be all powerful.
What a vivid imagination.
In Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indy recovered the Ark of the Covenant alongside Marion Ravenwood, a quick-witted driven Spitfire with a mean right hook. In the Temple of Doom, Kate Capshaw's Willie Scott, a nightclub entertainer in over her head, joins Dr. Jones, alongside Ki-Hugh Kwan's Short Round, a Chinese orphan, pickpocket, and all-around MVP of the film.
Wow, holy smoke! Crash landing!
Short Round, step on it!
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes!
Lucas initially wanted a virginal young princess to be Indy's companion throughout the prequel. However, that idea didn't fit the James Bond-like mold of the Indiana Jones franchise. Instead, fans got Kate Capshaw's Willie Scott, a divisive character to say the least.
Hey, Dr. Jones, no time for love! We got company!
While Scott embodies the blonde bombshell archetype, audiences and critics responded poorly to Capshaw's character and performance. Spicy reviewers noted Scott's shrill whining throughout the adventure, while others were disturbed by the character's shallowness, cultural insensitivity, and cowardice in the face of danger.
Dr. Jones, you cheat!
Oh, the place is completely surrounded. The entire place is crawling with living things.
That's why they call it the jungle, sweetheart.
In the years since Temple's release, a section of fans have warmed to Capshaw's performance. Still, comparisons to Karen Ellen's Marion Ravenwood haunted Willie's every move, leaving her disadvantaged. As for Ki-Hugh Kwan, the Academy Award-winning actor stumbled into the role when Lucas and Spielberg held auditions at a school in Chinatown, Los Angeles. On that fateful day, Kwan was helping his brother prepare for his audition when the film's casting director asked if he wanted to read for the part. Kwan enthusiastically agreed and received a call back the next day. 1 year later, Kwan teamed up with Spielberg again for the coming-of-age adventure classic, The Goonies. Kwan plays Data in the beloved film, a young inventor of questionable skill, but with the best intentions.
Oh my god, is he nuts? He's no nuts. He's crazy.
Concerned that audiences would zone out while learning about the thuggy cult, Hyuk and Katz floated the idea of sending Indy on a tiger hunt. During the pursuit, audiences would learn about the cult through engaging dialogue and suspenseful scenes of Indy stalking the magnificent beast. When Spielberg said he didn't plan to stay in India for as long as it would take to film the hunt, the team devised the stomach-churning dinner scene where Dr. Jones and his companions dine on insects, wriggling baby snakes, eyeball soup, and chilled monkey brains. The Temple of Doom dinner party is one of the most iconic scenes in the Indiana Jones franchise. However, representatives of India did not take kindly to how the dinner depicted their culture and cuisine. The dishes served in the extreme scene do not represent Indian delicacies, nor does the film portray the people of India in a favorable light. Disgusted by Temple's treatment of its people, traditions, and methods of worship, censors in India instituted a temporary ban on the Indy prequel in theaters. Filmmakers and cast members mostly waved the complaints aside. Collectively, they claimed the dinner scene was supposed to be a joke, suggesting the Indians were more intelligent than the Western interlopers by serving them the meal they expected from a foreign organization. Temple of Doom eventually hit shelves in India, but only after the movie made its way to home video.
Give me your hat.
Why?
Because I'm gonna puke in it.
Just like filming proved difficult for Raiders of the Lost Ark, shooting Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom was no exception. The Indian government denied the filmmakers permission to capture portions of the plot in North India, unless Spielberg and his team agreed to a list of demands. In addition to saying the temple Spielberg wanted to film in was off-limits, the Indian government wanted to make drastic changes to the script. Indian officials were insulted by the film's depiction of their people and culture, and did not want specific cultural identifiers used throughout the story. When the Indian government asked for final cut approval of the project, Spielberg and his crew abandoned plans to film in the authentic locale. Instead, Spielberg and his crew set up shop in Kandy, Sri Lanka, located in the Indian Ocean, just off the southeastern coast of India. After losing the desired filming locations in North India, the production required more props, sets, and additions to the new setting. This setback added to the film's budget, which was already more than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Once filming in Sri Lanka wrapped, the crew relocated to Elstree Studios in Hertfordshire, England.
We're not going to Delhi, doll. We're going to Pankot Palace.
Pankot? I can't go to Pankot. I'm a singer. Oh, I need to call my agent. Is there a phone? Anybody? I need a phone.
Suppose there's another scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom that's burned into our memories alongside the cultist dinner party. In that case, it's the one where Indy, Short Round, and Willie Scott encounter a hallway filled with thousands of creepy, crawly insects. Before you ask, yes, the bugs in this scene were legit. No one knows how many insects Spielberg used in this iconic scene, but there are rough estimates. Green Pest Services said the production team gathered roughly 30,000 beetles and 50,000 cockroaches, with countless stick bugs, phasmids, harlequin, and Hercules beetles. Frustration arrived on the set while trying to film the intimidating number of insects, because if there's one thing bugs don't like, it's light. With spotlights stationed every few feet, the bugs skittered towards the darkest corners of the set every time Spielberg called for action. To combat the camera-shy pests, Spielberg used a dump truck to unload an untold amount of bugs onto the stage, quickly capturing the scene before the bugs could escape into the shadows. Disturbingly, cast and crew members say they'd find bugs in their clothes, hair, and shoes after a hard day's work, giving them a wicked case of the heebie-jeebies long after cameras stopped rolling.
We are going to die!
Spielberg experienced other filming challenges throughout production, including compensating for one of Harrison Ford's injuries. Adding to his list of misfortunes while playing Indiana Jones, Ford suffered a spinal disc herniation while performing a somersault during a fight scene in Pankot Palace. Recognizing the degree of pain his actor had endured, Spielberg brought a hospital bed to the set so Ford could rest between takes. Known for pushing through pain, Ford insisted on continuing the movie as planned. However, his injury was so severe, Spielberg eventually shut down production so medics could take Ford to Centinela Hospital, where he could get proper care and rest. Despite experiencing setbacks, Spielberg finished Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on time and within budget. He did film several pickup shots after the initial wrap, which is commonplace throughout the industry. Despite its complicated setup, even the film's thrilling minecart sequence was a success. Constructed as a roller coaster and scale model with doll-like body doubles, the effects team used live footage and stop-motion animation to complete the scene. If you're paying attention while watching the movie, you can spot the differences between the two filming methods. The minecart sequence makes for one of the most exciting scenes in the film, and I find it baffling that no theme park has recreated the scene for an indoor roller coaster attraction. Whoever builds it could use John Williams' rousing score to add authenticity and class to the experience.
It's more than a ride. It's real.
In addition to being a jaw-dropping entry in the Indiana Jones film series, Temple of Doom helped make Hollywood history by being the first feature to introduce the PG-13 rating. Parents were shocked by the film's contents, arguing that a PG rating did not warn about the prequel's mature themes and gratuitous displays of violence. Meanwhile, neither Spielberg nor the studio wanted an R rating. As a compromise, Spielberg and MPAA president and rating creator, the late Jack Valenti, rallied for a rating between PG and R. A section of executives disliked the idea, saying that checking IDs at theaters could become chaotic. However, many bigwigs agreed with the change, and the PG-13 rating was born. The rating system changed again in 1990 to include the X and NC-17 ratings, but that's another video altogether. Thankfully, everyone's tireless efforts were rewarded when Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom hit the box office. The film earned an impressive $45.7 million in its first week, eventually climbing to $333.1 million worldwide. Lucas and Spielberg had done it again, with crowds eagerly anticipating the arrival of Indy's next Odyssey. Come awards season, Temple of Doom won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects and the Best Special Visual Effects prize at the British Academy Film Awards.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
While I prefer Raiders of the Lost Ark to Temple of Doom, Spielberg's prequel is an entertaining exercise in producing a prequel that adds to an iconic character's mythology and pushes the limits of what you can get away with while making a family film. Still, there's plenty to love about Temple of Doom, from Ford's dedicated performance to Ke Huy Quan's boundless energy and loyalty as Short Round. Visually, the movie is another feather in Spielberg's cap, with the film's lavish costumes and locales standing out like the luminosity of Charles large Sankara stones. Crafted in a different time, I'd like to think Spielberg and his partners have taken criticisms about Temple's portrayal of the Indian people and culture to heart. Warts and all is a term that often comes to mind when revisiting a film from my youth, and I sometimes find myself taken aback by questionable material that flew directly over my head while being dazzled by the movie magic of a bygone era. Despite the film's moral failings, Temple of Doom presents a fascinating look into the psyches of two men, using film as an outlet to process personal trauma. Indy's adventure culminates into an outstanding third act that gives the adventurer some of his most extraordinary set pieces and defining character moments. Sequels often stumble under the weight of their predecessor. However, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom helped cement Indy's place in pop culture, elevating the character to levels a franchise tastemaker of today can only hope to aspire to. As we prepare for the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, it's been a blast to revisit the character's roots and get reacquainted with the memorable misadventures that created a cinematic legend as powerful as the image of a cultist lifting a still-beating heart in tribute above a pit of flickering flames. With the Ark of the Covenant tucked away in an undisclosed location and the sacred Sankara stones returned to their people, it's time for Henry Walton Indiana Jones Jr. to face his most significant challenge ever: daddy issues.
Junior?
Yes, sir.
It is you, Junior. Don't call me that, please.
In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indy and his father, Henry Jones Sr., played by the legendary Sean Connery, embark on an epic adventure to recover the Holy Grail, a fabled chalice with extraordinary powers, said to grant eternal youth and infinite sustenance to those who drink from the hallowed cup. Join us for another race against time as we shape history alongside one of cinema's greatest heroes of the silver screen, with a look back at Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Dad, we're well out of range.
So unnecessary.
5 years after disturbing audiences with a decidedly darker adventure in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the dynamic duo of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas returned for the third film in a loosely planned trilogy. With cannibals and a cursed chest in Indy's rearview, the time for Nazis to march back onto the franchise had come. In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indy becomes involved in a quest to recover the Holy Grail after his father, a Scottish professor of medieval literature and expert on Grail lore, vanishes while searching for the ancient artifact. The rollicking threequel harkens back to Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark in tone, with humor and exploration of character driving the story instead of problematic portrayals of foreign cultures, and nightmarish villains bathed in blood and wearing the bones of fallen followers.
I gotta tell you something.
Don't get sentimental now, Dad. Save it till we get out of here.
The floor's on fire. See?
And the chair.
The script mostly forgoes Indy's Bond-like playboy persona in favor of an adversarial father-son dynamic shared between Ford and Connery. I consider Indy and Henry's push-and-pull rapport a breath of fresh air after 2 movies of our hero laying it on thick for the ladies. Henry's judgmental demeanor reduces Indy to a more childlike state, inspiring him to pull out all the stops to impress the man who helped bring him into the world. This unique position makes Indy try all the harder to sidestep danger, outsmart his adversaries, and lay the smackdown on Nazi scum.
No ticket.
As we'd mentioned in our previous video for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indy's third chapter's initial idea involved exploring a haunted house. However, Spielberg rejected the concept, finding it too similar to his work on 1982's Poltergeist. While speaking to reporters about The Last Crusade, Spielberg said he could feel himself consciously regressing while preparing to make the movie. He considered it a step back in his artistic journey. The Last Crusade also cost the director 2 opportunities: the chance to direct big starring Tom Hanks, and being the man behind the camera for Rain Man, the emotional drama starring Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman as brothers on a cross-country trip.
Uh-oh, fart.
Yeah, Charlie Babbitt, I'll hold.
Fart.
Did you fart, Ray?
Fart.
Did you fart?
Fart.
Oh, man. Look at this. How can you stand that?
I don't mind it.
Spielberg all but groaned when George Lucas proposed the haunted house idea. The 8-page draft, Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, found Indy encountering a specter in Scotland before the mission took him to Africa, where the Fountain of Youth would test him with the enticing power of immortality. Still, Lucas's Monkey King project lasted longer than you'd think. The studio hired Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Adventures in Babysitting director Chris Columbus to write the script. When he submitted his first draft, he changed significant plot elements to include a garden of immortal peaches, an enchanted locale from Chinese mythology. Chinese artists often use peaches to symbolize immortality or a desire to live well. While Spielberg would eventually pluck the peach from Indy's hand, Columbus's draft describes an outlandish outing for the intrepid explorer. The tale begins in India, circa 1937, with Indy engaged in a paranormal battle with Baron Seamus Seagrove III in Scotland. After exorcising the malevolent wraith, Indy advances to Mozambique, where a 200-year-old pygmy accompanies Dr. Claire Clark. When the pygmy becomes kidnapped by Nazis, Indy, Dr. Clark, and Scraggy Briar, a friend of Indy's, set out to rescue him. Indy dies near the mission's climax, but the Monkey King resurrects him. When the filmmakers asked Columbus to draft another script, he eventually produced another unused idea. In the second attempt, Columbus pitted Indy against Dash, a refugee bar owner who controls a group of Nazi soldiers. The story included the Monkey King as a villainous overseer of a heady plot. In the draft, the Monkey King forces Indy and Dash to play a game of chess with humans as pieces on the board. When a human player needed to exit the board, they'd fall to pieces before the player's eyes.
No! Don't move! Don't forget, we're still playing.
While scouting locations to film Columbus's Monkey King plot, Spielberg and Lucas pulled the plug, citing the story's negative depiction of African culture as their reason to abandon the idea. Spielberg also thought the script was illogical. As a result, he expressed little desire to direct a film that made him feel old and out of touch. Already exhausted by the creative process, Spielberg floated the idea of giving Indy's father, Henry, a proper introduction. Unconvinced, Lucas insisted the Grail should be the story's focus. When Spielberg noted that Indy and Henry's oil and water rivalry would be a better vehicle for the mission, Lucas eventually surrendered.
Those people are trying to kill him. I know, Dad! It's a new experience for me. Happens to me all the time.
With Columbus out, Lethal Weapon and the Lost Boys writer Jeffrey Baum began writing a script. Baum understood the assignment from the jump, saying Indy and Henry's reconciliation should be the film's heart. The first draft featured Henry in a more significant role, as he searches for the Grail alongside Elsa, a Nazi in disguise with plans to steal the Grail. Meanwhile, the finale found Indy battling the Grail Knight instead of the final product's more mythical and philosophical approach. At Sean Connery's request, Baum's second draft included comedic elements, resulting in a more light-hearted approach to Indy and Henry's familial squabbling. The new script also introduced a prologue featuring Indiana as a young Boy Scout, played by the late River Phoenix in the film's final version.
You got heart, kid, but that belongs to me.
Belongs to Coronado.
Coronado's dead, and so are all of his grandchildren.
This should be in a museum.
Tom Stoppard, under the pen name Barry Watson, helped revise the story by Lucas and Menno Meyjes through dialogue tweaks and character introductions. It was Stoppard's idea to include the scene where young Indy acquires his iconic hat after an altercation with a group of thieves. With Ford already on board to reprise the role of Indiana Jones, Spielberg needed a handful of new players to act as characters in the hunt for the Grail. The filmmakers considered Gregory Peck for the role of Henry Jones Sr., but Spielberg wanted Sean Connery to play Indy's Grail-obsessed father figure. Connery refused the part at first, saying franchise roles were dull, and came saddled with unwanted attention from newshounds.
I'm sorry, I didn't get down what magazines you're from.
Horse and Hound.
However, Connery was a history buff, and when Spielberg permitted him to tailor the character to someone more nuanced, he accepted the gig. Trading Places actor Denholm Elliott returns as Marcus Brody, first introduced as Indy's affable colleague in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Brody's got friends in every town and village from here to the Sudan. He speaks a dozen languages, knows every local custom. He'll blend in, disappear. You'll never see him again. With any luck, he's got the Grail already.
Does anyone here speak English? Or even ancient Greek? Water, no, thank you, sir. No, fish make love in it.
Playing the Austrian art professor and Indy's love interest is Alison Doody as Elsa Schneider. Elsa acts as a double agent in the film, tricking Indy into revealing information about the Grail's whereabouts before sharing its location with her Nazi comrades.
You stood up to be counted with the enemy of everything that the Grail stands for. Who gives a damn what you think?
You do!
All I have to do is squeeze.
All I have to do is scream.
John Rhys-Davies rejoins the mission as Sala, Indiana's compatriot from Cairo, and a friendly and familiar face after the dark events of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Unfortunately for Davies, filming The Last Crusade was no walk in the park. Davies felt a dull pain traveling down his leg 3 days before filming. It wasn't long before acute sciatica struck, prompting Davies to treat the symptoms with pills and rest. Although riding a horse was not recommended for someone in his condition, Davies soldiered through, with "the show must go on" as his motto.
I said no camels! That's 5 camels! Can't you count? Compensation for my brother-in-law's car.
Other players include Julian Glover as Walter Donovan, a snide businessman who not so secretly covets the Holy Grail.
Didn't I warn you not to trust anybody, Dr. Jones?
I misjudged you, Walter. I knew you would sell your mother for an Etruscan vase, but I didn't know you would sell your country and your soul to the slime of humanity.
And Michael Byrne as Ernst Vogel, a ruthless SS colonel and bootlicker of Adolf Hitler. Kevork Melikian portrays Kazim, the leader of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword, while Robert Edison suits up as the Grail Knight, a patient guard dedicated to the Grail's safety.
You have chosen wisely.
Shooting an Indiana Jones film always brings Spielberg and his crew to exotic locations. Part of what makes the franchise exciting is escaping to foreign lands, encountering different cultures, and developing stories where Indy is arguably out of his depth. Before Hollywood blockbusters became an orgy of blue and green screen technology, Spielberg brought much of Indy's meticulous sets and show-stopping set pieces to life on location around the globe. Filming for The Last Crusade began in the Tabernas Desert in Spain's Almeria province. The Tabernas Desert is where the film's most thrilling chase sequence takes place, with Indy attempting to rescue his father and Marcus from the belly of a destructive tank. As Indiana dodges explosives on horseback, the tank treads carve scars into the sand, spitting debris into hazardous clouds of exhaust. Initially, Spielberg planned for a shorter sequence. However, he felt the chase could be a more intense bonding moment for Indy and Henry Sr. While Spielberg says the sweat-inducing pursuit was more fun to storyboard than shoot, its climax facilitates one of the film's most heartwarming moments, after Henry Sr. believes Indy perished during the daring rescue.
I thought I'd lost you, boy. I thought you had to, sir.
Spielberg likened the harrowing tank sequence to the iconic truck chase in Raiders of the Lost Ark, saying, "No action sequence that I will ever shoot will be as good as the truck chase in that first film. So I was not even trying to best that one. The truck chase is still my favorite, but the tank chase was different because it had more story to it. There was action inside the tank and outside of the tank, and there was also humor, and within the chase sequence itself, certain characters evolve."
You call this archaeology? Get out of there, Dan!
Another outstanding location in the film is the intimidating Brunwald Castle, where Indiana and Henry Sr. narrowly escape being burned alive. The exteriors of the fortress were filmed at Bielisheim Castle in West Germany. Meanwhile, the interior shots took place in the UK, at Elstree Studios in Bureham Wood, England. While I could spend the remainder of this video talking about a myriad of filming locations related to The Last Crusade, the one I find to be the most impressive is the Grail Temple. Planned by production designer Elliot Scott, the team built the sanctuary 80 feet above ground. Special effects artist George Gibbs, whose work you'll see in films like Brazil, Alien 3, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, once commented that The Last Crusade is the most brutal film he's ever worked on. Thanks, to the Grail Temple. The Grail Temple is as big as the place of worship in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, though slightly less intimidating to operate. The team built the Grail Temple using an intricate hydraulic system to manipulate the set. It took roughly 20 minutes to reset the temple between takes, minimizing downtime while helping to keep things on schedule. Effects artists were able to move the set at different points, simulating the earthquake, gaping fissures, and crumbling floors. Finally, because I can't let a video in this series go by without discussing the gross-out aspect of the Indiana Jones franchise, it's time to talk about the rats. Finding enough rats for the scene involving Indy and Elsa exploring catacombs beneath the streets of Venice proved difficult. The production team ordered 1,000 sewer rats from their trusty animal wrangler. However, when the team determined this wouldn't be enough, they started breeding their own in the 5 months leading up to the scene. The production became 5,000 rats strong, all squeaking, writhing, and nibbling around the set. While Spielberg lost crew members for Raiders and Temple because of rogue snakes and escaped insects, the cast and crew embraced the rats. Unafraid of the scurrying scoundrels, Ford and Doody would often play with the vermin between takes.
Actually, I mean, they have personalities, rats do, compared to snakes and insects. Man bites rat. Freak accident.
While we're discussing gross-out effects, let's get up close and personal with the death of Julian Glover's Donovan. When the dastardly collector of antiquities drinks from the wrong grail, the penalty is an accelerated decomposition on par with Tot's demise after activating the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark. To create the effect, makeup effects artist and creature designer Nick Dudman attached inflatable pads to Glover's forehead and cheekbones, as well as a wig capable of growing hair on the spot. The padding helped create enough space to make it look like Glover's eyes were receding into his skull, creating a sunken, mummified look. It took 3 months and multiple puppets in various states of decay to capture the shot.
He chose poorly.
During Memorial Day weekend, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade opened in 2,327 United States and Canadian theaters on May 24, 1989. Indy's third feature-length adventure whipped up $37 million at the box office over the 4-day debut, with $474.1 million at the end of its theatrical run. The film received more praise from critics and audiences than Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, with many citing the comedic tone and on-screen chemistry between Ford and Connery as a highlight. While many fans celebrate Temple of Doom as the boldest entry in the Indiana Jones franchise, audiences delighted in Indy's search for the Grail, with some saying the over-the-top action felt exhilarating compared to Temple's dark themes and culturally insensitive content.
What did you find, Dad?
Me. Illumination.
As for me, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is my second favorite film in the series. Nothing classes up a joint like Sean Connery, and I believe Indy is at his best when punching more Nazis than Captain America.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
While she doesn't share as much screen time with Indy as Karen Allen's Marion Ravenwood or Kate Capshaw's Willie Scott, the heat between Ford and Allison Doody's Elsa Schneider is undeniable. Ravenwood holds the key to Indy's heart, but Elsa challenges our hero while pulling the wool over his eyes. A calculating criminal is a fine foil for the brave explorer, but Elsa taught Indy lessons about trust he'll never forget.
You should have listened to your father.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade includes some of the franchise's most thrilling action sequences.
Are you crazy? Don't go between them!
Go between them, are you crazy?
From the sensational tank chase to the narrow escape from Brunwald Castle, the film is a marvelous blend of practical effects and visions of future tech that eventually dominate the industry. The Indiana Jones franchise has never been the same since The Last Crusade, even if every chapter boasts redeeming factors. Indy's quest for the Holy Grail is an excellent trilogy capper considering the character's eternal appeal, and the Odyssey exposes the character's sensitivities in ways we've never seen.
Indiana? Let it go.
There are innumerable reasons why Indiana Jones has stood the test of time in the face of an ever-changing industry. Few characters capture the feeling of exploring parts unknown, grinning in the face of danger, and sweeping generations off their feet with the crack of a whip. We may never know a character like Indiana Jones again, and The Last Crusade is a treasure among the hero's many adventures, and a prime example of why Steven Spielberg is a master of his craft.
Henry, follow me! I know the way! Ha!
Got lost in his own museum, huh? Uh-huh. After you, Junior.
Yes, sir.
Russians, refrigerators, and aliens, oh my! Dr. Jones is packing his bags for Peru in the 4th chapter of the famed Indiana Jones franchise, and this time, he's bringing the whole family.
Would you two just stop?
Yeah, Marion. Let's not let the kids see Mom and Dad fight.
You're not my dad, okay?
You bet I am, and I got news for you. You're gonna go back and finish school.
Steel yourselves for adventure, drag a Coca-Cola soaked comb through your coif, and stand at least 2 miles away from the mushroom cloud because we're looking back on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
So unnecessary.
15 years before Indy turned the dial of destiny, the unflinching archaeologist embarks on the most contentious mission of his fabled career, to recover a telepathic crystal skull before a squad of KGB agents led by Cate Blanchett's Irina Spalko can use the jeweled remains to unlock the secrets of mind-controlling knowledge. Peppered with triple crosses, death-defying acts of daring do, and ill-fated attempts at passing the torch, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull finds the saga at a technical crossroads, with much of the franchise's on-location magic replaced with CGI environments and rubber snakes.
Grab the snake! I'm calling it that! It's a snake, what do you want me to call it? Say rope! What? Say grab the rope! Grab the rope!
Despite signing a 5-film deal with Paramount Pictures, the well had run dry for George Lucas regarding Indy's evolution beyond 1989's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Instead of marching forward, Lucas turned back the clock for the prequel television series, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. The first 2 seasons aired on ABC between 1992 and 1993, with 4 TV films debuting on the Family Channel from 1994 to 1996. The presentation focused on Indy at different career stages, with multiple actors including Harrison Ford portraying the character. For the series, Corey Carrier, Sean Patrick Flannery, Harrison Ford, and George Hall portrayed Dr. Jones at various stages of his life. In addition to providing context for the films and fleshing out Indy's relationship with his father, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles includes an educational angle, marrying Indy's adventures with lessons about famous historical figures. Throughout the series, Indy travels alongside prominent figures like Leo Tolstoy, John Ford, Elliot Ness, Louis Armstrong, Norman Rockwell, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, Pablo Picasso, and many more. In the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indy mentions a mission with Pancho Villa to his son Mutt, played by Shia LaBeouf. This reference ties directly to the first episode of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Pancho Villa.
Technically, I was kidnapped.
By Pancho Villa.
It was a fight against Victoriano Huerta.
How old were you?
Not your age.
Lucas proposed a controversial theme while drumming up ideas for Indy's next adventure. What if Indiana encountered aliens during his 4th outing? Spielberg's record with otherworldly visitors spoke for itself, with films like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T. the Extraterrestrial as examples of his knack for crafting stories revolving around our almond-eyed neighbors. Surprisingly, Ford and Spielberg rejected the idea, thinking aliens should remain among the stars.
Even I get bored sometimes. You think I had a choice?
Still, Lucas insisted the idea was a natural fit, saying audiences trust the Indiana Jones franchise enough to present something out of the box. While researching angles for the story, Lucas discovered Joseph Stalin's infatuation with psychic warfare. Thinking this would be enough to sway his co-creators, Jeb Stewart began working on a script before Last Crusade's Jeffrey Baum took up the writing torch for 3 more passes. Unfortunately, Spielberg remained unconvinced and tabled the project, leaving Lucas to return to the Star Wars universe. After several years of working on other projects, Ford, Lucas, and Spielberg reconvened. Lucas proposed his science fiction ideas again, promising to present the aliens as interdimensional beings. Lucas suggested using superstring theory as the foundation, with the crystal skulls as an object of power for Indy to interact with. With concepts by Lucas and Jeff Nathanson, David Cope penned the script with assistance from Lost Ark screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan.
Want to be a good archaeologist? You gotta get out of the library!
Casting for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a smoother process than previous films in the franchise. Spielberg's reputation at this point in his career was one of legend, with some people in the business playfully referring to him as God on and off the set. Ford enthusiastically joined the production, instituting a strict gym routine to keep his 64-year-old bones from buckling beneath the pressure. Proud to represent Jones at a more delicate age, Ford refused to dye his hair for the role, saying audiences' love for the character outweighed any chance of ageism.
Damn, I thought that was closer.
Cate Blanchett, a longtime fan of the Indiana Jones franchise, jumped at the chance to play the iniquitous villain Irina Spalko. Spielberg, hailing Blanchett as a master of disguise, welcomed the enigmatic actor with open arms. He's even gone so far as to say Blanchett Spalko is his favorite villain in the Indiana Jones series. Meanwhile, Karen Allen returns as Indy's tough-as-nails ladylove, Marion Ravenwood. Allen notoriously had a rough time filming Raiders of the Lost Ark. Still, Allen eagerly joined the cast when Spielberg explained how integral her character was to the plot. While Allen and Ford experienced their share of differences on the Raiders set, the duo forged an unbreakable bond during the Crystal Skull production. Reuniting Indy and Marion in more ways than one in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is the couple's bull-headed greaser's son, Mutt. Understanding the assignment for how to play this petulant sidekick character is Shia LaBeouf. When LaBeouf signed on for Crystal Skull, the now controversial actor was riding high off the success of movies like DJ Caruso's Hitchcockian drama Disturbia, and the first of many chapters in Michael Bay's Transformers saga. Initially, the plan was for Indy and Marion to have a 13-year-old daughter after her introduction in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. However, Spielberg thought this angle was too similar to his work for 1997's The Lost World: Jurassic Park, in which the daughter of Jeff Goldblum's Dr. Ian Malcolm becomes involved in the prehistoric panic. After choosing to change the offspring from a daughter to a son, LaBeouf was Spielberg's first choice after enjoying his role in the 2003 adventure comedy Holes. Before Mutt began combing Coca-Cola through his coif and listening to too much Johnny Cash, Elvis, and the Stray Cats, the plan was to make him a bookish anti-Indiana Jones. However, the team made Mutt a combative, irritating character to challenge Indy's fatherly instincts. LaBeouf was over the moon to work alongside Hollywood greats like Spielberg, Ford, and Allen, throwing everything he had into researching his part. With movies like Rebel Without a Cause and The Wild Ones to inspire him, LaBeouf discovered Mutt's arc from an insufferable greaser to an adventurer with an insatiable appetite for danger. Other key players in the Crystal Skull cast include Ray Winstone as George Mac McHale, a secret agent of World War II and trusted friend of Indiana Jones, and John Hurt as Harold Ox Oxley, Mutt's surrogate father. When McHale's debts outweigh his loyalty, he betrays Indy on multiple occasions, putting jewel-encrusted brooches before bros, as it were. Winstone's idea was to present McHale as a duplicitous Judas, playing Indy like a puppet with their years of friendship as the invisible strings. Spielberg enjoyed his idea for the twist and repositioned the character's motivations and fate. As for Hurt, his inclusion was at the behest of Frank Darabont. Hurt read the script before signing on, with instructions to play the character like Ben Gunn from Byron Haskin's 1950 adventure film Treasure Island.
3 times it drops.
3 times it drops.
What is he talking about?
He means 1, 2.
Filmed in parts of the United States, including New Mexico, Connecticut, Hawaii, and California. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull used college campuses and studio backlots to capture most of the action. However, when an Emmerich-level tropical storm called Hurricane Flossie ripped through Hawaii, Spielberg sent a secondary film crew to record footage of Brazil and Argentina's Iguazu Falls. Spielberg digitally inserted the shots into a fight scene on the Universal backlot. Speaking of fight sequences, Spielberg hired Spider-Man 2 and Quantum of Solace stunt coordinator Dan Bradley to arrange the adventure's swashbuckling sword fights, frenzied fisticuffs, and ludicrous leaps of faith. Bradley used storyboards to plot the action, providing a visual roadmap for set designers and stunt performers. Initially, the plan was to use minimal CGI to complete the film. Unfortunately, the team encountered more instances where CGI would benefit the budget and delivery date for the film, resulting in 450 CGI shots throughout.
That can't be good.
Once again, world-renowned composer John Williams lent his legendary skills to the Indiana Jones franchise. A fixture for every entry in the action-adventure saga, Williams relished working alongside Spielberg and company on the archaeologist's next odyssey into the unknown, using existing themes from previous films, including music written for Indiana and Marion specifically. Williams introduces new arrangements for Mutt and Spalko in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, inspired by 1950s film noir and rockabilly motifs. Williams and his band of musicians recorded the soundtrack in 10 days, astonishing crew members with the conductor's work ethic and ability to organize an ensemble of talented musicians.
Working with Steven is a particular privilege. And we come back to the series with the original team after 28 years. When you think about it, it's a remarkable thing. And this film is a very good illustration of that kind of very unique bringing together of people and collaboration and having it work so well after so many years.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull made Paramount Pictures history upon its release by distributing 1,200 prints in May 2008. Spielberg, still a purist then, wanted audiences to experience the film via a projector in theaters, but Paramount had other plans. Technology in cinemas was on the verge of a sea change, with markets introducing digital formats. Moving to digital meant theaters could receive films through file transfer, no longer depending on studios to ship physical prints. The end of an era was nigh, with hotfixes, post-distribution edits, and a rise in piracy on the horizon. Despite Spielberg's efforts to keep the film pure, digital versions of Crystal Skull landed in theaters during the conversion. Critic and audience reactions to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull ranged from positive to pitchforks and torches.
Grab your torch and pitchforks! Doesn't that bother you?
Nope.
Really?
Really.
While some celebrated the sequel's continued pulpy excellence, interdimensional twist, and rollicking slapstick action, others said the movie had nuked the fridge, referencing Indy's shelter of choice against an atomic bomb near the film's start. Whether or not Crystal Skull jumped the shark is debatable. However, considering the franchise's penchant for supernatural elements, I'd argue that the aliens are a natural fit alongside wraiths, eternal grail knights, and black magic sacrifices. With a 77% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes and roughly $791 million in worldwide receipts, the numbers amount to another exciting chapter of the title character's lasting legacy.
But their treasure wasn't gold, it was knowledge. Knowledge was their treasure.
If you ask me what I thought about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008, my 27-year-old self stood in line with the dissenters, decrying LaBeouf's attitudinal mutt, the film's egregious CGI and minimal use of on-location filming. However, time heals many wounds, and revisiting the film for the sake of this script has afforded me a fresh perspective. While aspects of the CGI caused the film to lose much of the franchise's on-location authenticity, I understand that's a byproduct of the times, and not something to harp on too harshly. Crystal Skull gives us the best female lead in the series since Marion Ravenwood in Blanchett's diabolical Irina Spalko, whose desire to learn from the skulls is infectious. It offers the same thrilling radio play vibes as any of its predecessors, and keeps the age of Ford's character honest, in a medium where youth is the more attractive option for any studio. Despite arriving 19 years after Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull retains the trilogy's intrepid spirit. Williams' evolution of classic themes is thrilling, with the legendary composer cutting loose after being away from the franchise for nearly 2 decades. At its core, Crystal Skull reminds me of how how fun and outlandish the Indiana Jones films can be. I could do without Mutt's Tarzan routine as much as the next hater, but I've forgiven better films for worse.
Get on, Chris!
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is as fun as any other film in the series. Ford delivers another memorable performance as the whip-wielding knowledge seeker. Bold swings, unexpected twists, and an unquenchable thirst for adventure are a few things that make the Indiana Jones franchise special, and it's impossible to think of the Hollywood landscape without Indy pushing the boundaries of action and discovery on the silver screen. At the end of the day, Indiana Jones is a rip-roaring adventure that feels like a roller coaster. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull feels the most like a theme park ride, making it a winner. We waited decades to see Ford don the fedora. It may not be top shelf, but Domino's is still tasty. This is it, folks. It's time to blow the dust off the fedora, oil the whip, and venture into the unknown one last time as we celebrate the end of an era with a look back at the 5th film in the Indiana Jones franchise, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Okay. Guess I'll spoon feed it to you then.
So unnecessary.
Unleashed 15 years after Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and presented as Harrison Ford's final performance as Dr. Henry Walton Indiana Jones Jr., Dial of Destiny finds a disillusioned Indy haunted by a villain from his past, and pulled into a chase to recover the Antikythera, an ancient Greek hand-powered orrery capable of predicting astronomical patterns and eclipses in advance. Commonly referred to as the first analog computer, the Antikythera is more than it seems in Dial of Destiny. In the film, the Antikythera can chart fissures in the fabric of space-time. Open for a brief measure of seconds, the apertures help transport explorers through history. Using the Antikythera, one could map a course through the past, possibly manipulating pivotal events. For a moment, imagine this device in the hands of the wrong people and feel the shivers run down your spine.
Yeah.
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 As a way of bucking tradition, Dial of Destiny is the first feature in the Indiana Jones franchise directed by someone other than Steven Spielberg. Shocking as this is, the answer to why Spielberg relinquished the reins to another director is simple: he wanted to pass the torch. Feeling it was time for a new generation to decide Indy's fate, Spielberg exited directorial duties for Dial of Destiny in 2020 after several delays due to the COVID-19 pandemic. James Mangold quickly took hold of the production as the project's new director, with Mangold, David Cope, John Henry Butterworth, and Jex Butterworth penning the script. The deal to make a 5th Indiana Jones movie dates back to 1979, when Spielberg and George Lucas signed an agreement with Paramount for 4 sequels to 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Initially, George Lucas imagined Indy and Marion Ravenwood's son, Mutt Williams, as the hero of the 5th chapter of the film series. However, Lucas changed his mind about making the combative greaser played by Shia LaBeouf in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull shortly after the divisive sequel's theatrical release. While Lucas never gave an official reason for abandoning his idea for Mutt to pick up the whip, adverse fan reactions to the character could have played a part. Speaking with MTV 3 weeks after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull debuted in theaters, Lucas commented on his decision to euthanize his plans for Mutt, saying Indiana Jones is Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. If it was Mutt Williams, it would be Mutt Williams and the Search for Elvis, or something. In the end, LaBeouf didn't hand-jive his way to becoming the frontrunner of the franchise, which is a good thing, as his problematic reputation would have lent poorly to playing the central character for a decades-long commitment.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
During the film's planning stage, Spielberg and Lucas disagreed about where the next chapter could go. Lucas wanted the franchise to retain its supernatural roots, while presenting an archaeological and historical bent. While Spielberg agreed, the two creatives began pulling Indy in different directions, with Lucas looking toward the future and Spielberg wanting to return to the past. In an interview with The Times Online, Lucas explained the duo's divide. "I'm in the future, Steven's in the past. He's trying to drag it back to the way they were. I'm trying to push it to a whole different place." So, still we have this sort of tension. The recent one came out of that. It's kind of a hybrid of our own two ideas, so we'll see where we're able to take the next one. The schism left Ford's final Indy film in limbo, and during the creative lull, the Walt Disney Company obtained Lucasfilm, giving rights to the character's upcoming Odyssey to the House of Mouse. Then, in another move, Walt Disney Studios snagged the distribution and marketing rights to future installments of the Indiana Jones franchise from Paramount. With Walt Disney Pictures and Lucasfilm agreeing to co-produce the fifth film, Lucas relinquished the long-gestating film project to Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. Collectively, the creative forces in charge of Indy's fate felt the character needed one more adventure before hanging his hat on a line.
Get back!
With the Antikythera chosen as the film's MacGuffin, it was time to get the band back together and add a few new players to the cast. Ford would return as Dr. Jones for one last trip into danger without question. Still, the 80-year-old actor is no spring chicken, and would require a body double to film Dial of Destiny's extended opening sequence set in 1944. In addition to using state-of-the-art de-aging technology on Ford, Anthony Ingruber played Ford's body double for select scenes. The effects-driven sequence finds a younger Indiana Jones aboard a speeding train occupied by Nazis, there to rescue his Oxford colleague Basil Shaw, played by English actor Toby Jones, and retrieve the Lance of Longinus, a holy spear said to have pierced the side of Jesus Christ during the biblical figure's crucifixion. Indy traverses the racing death trap with vigilance. The opening sequence peacocks the film industry's ability to delight and deceive, featuring close calls, fisticuffs, and close-up shots of Disney's uncanny VFX magic. Making her debut in the Indiana Jones franchise is Fleabag and Killing Eve actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who plays Helena Shaw, Indy's opportunistic and brash goddaughter. Throughout Dial of Destiny, Helena acts as a thorn in Indy's side by ignoring his instructions and carving a path toward a lucrative payday for selling the Antikythera to the highest bidder.
This relic is my property.
It's not yours. You stole it.
Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
Much like how Indy travels with Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Helena partners with Teddy Kumar, a young Moroccan pickpocket and sidekick played by Ethan Isidore. Like Short Round, Teddy pulls his weight throughout the mission by navigating the back streets of Tangier like a pro and making good use of his fake amateur pilot's license.
84 miles an hour. We'll take.
Playing the part of the film's primary protagonist, Jürgen Voller, is Danish actor Mads Mikkelsen. As a German scholar, scientist, and astrophysicist, Voller operates below the radar to achieve his lofty goal of reshaping the world in his image. After arriving in America, Voller adapted the name Schmidt and joined NASA to oversee the organization's moon landing operation. Aware of the Antikythera's power, Voller aims to rewrite history, correcting what he sees as past mistakes made by other genocidal dictators and tragically influential figures. Other players in Dial of Destiny include Antonio Banderas as Ronaldo, an old friend of Indy's and an experienced frogman of watery depths. John Rhys-Davies returns as Sala, Indy's longtime compatriot and grandchild wrangler with a warm disposition and infinite stories to share.
Give 'em hell, Indiana Jones!
Karen Allen comes back to the franchise as Marion Ravenwood, Indy's estranged wife, and mother to the couple's dearly departed son, Mutt, who died in the Vietnam War.
How would you have stopped him?
I told him he was going to die. I told him that his mother would find no end to her grief. and that the loss would put an end to their marriage.
Working as Voller's lapdog enforcer is Boyd Holbrook's Claver, a neo-Nazi unafraid to get his hands dirty at his master's behest. Shawnette Renee Wilson plays Agent Mason, a CIA agent assigned to keep Voller's nose clean in the face of his erratic behavior and habit of going off script. Unfortunately, Wilson's hypnotic presence is wasted in Dial of Destiny, resulting in one of the film's most significant missteps. Finally, there's Oliver Richters as Huck, Claver's silent muscle and Brick Shithouse in desperate need of swimming lessons.
Lead them. I said lead them.
With much of the cast assembled and Mangold ready to make history as the first director besides Spielberg to helm an Indiana Jones feature, filming began in the United States, with the challenges of a global pandemic infecting aspects of the project's production. Thanks partly to extended safety precautions during the COVID-19 crisis, Mangold established a remote location scouting system to limit the travel needed to secure filming environments. For this process, camera operators shot prospective settings and then sent the footage to Mangold and production designer Adam Stockhausen for review. Other filming locations for Dial of Destiny include England's famous Pinewood Studios, Bomberg Castle in Northumberland, the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, the Leaderfoot Viaduct over the River Tweed near Melrose in the Scottish Isles. Much like Indy's exploration throughout cinematic history, filming for Dial of Destiny found cast and crew members traveling to different parts of the globe, including sections of Scotland, Italy, the Kingdom of Morocco, and even the depths of the Mediterranean Sea. Mangold wanted to film on location despite the looming pandemic threat as much as possible. He shied away from using Industrial Light and Magic stagecraft technology in favor of practical effects, saying part of what made indie films exciting was seeing the actors performing in tangible environments. While rehearsing for the effects-heavy flashback sequence depicting Indy's search for the Lance of Longinus and his compatriot Basil Shaw, Harrison Ford honored the tradition of hurting himself while filming an indie movie by injuring his shoulder during a fight scene. Mangold reconfigured the filming schedule as needed, while Ford healed from the damage, a casualty of an actor insisting on doing most of his own stunts. The filming process for Marion Ravenwood's reunion with Dr. Jones only lasted a day and a half. Allen kept her part in the movie confidential for years, later saying the secrecy often felt like torture. Whenever the press would ask her about returning from Mangold's film, she'd like to say, "I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you." Allen also said she was delighted to reprise Marion for the sequel, though she would have liked a more prominent part. Rather than pairing Indy and Marion for Ford's final mission, Mangold and the Buttersworths created Helena Shaw specifically for Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Written as an homage to Marion Ravenwood, Shaw executes most of the extreme action in Dial of Destiny. She's mysterious and opportunistic, unafraid of risking life and limb to get what she wants. She puts Indy through his paces, reminding him of the good old days when fate fed you a boulder and monkey brains for breakfast. Rumors about Waller-Bridge leading an Indy spin-off continue circulating the internet, though we have yet to hear official word on the concept. Speaking with Variety, Kathleen Kennedy said it was entirely possible for Shaw to star in her own film.
No, you're not serious. Well, you are serious.
On the musical end of the spectrum, Spielberg announced in 2016 that, like other chapters in the franchise, John Williams would return to compose the score for Dial of Destiny. In 2022, Williams said Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny would be his final film project, with plans to retire on the horizon. However, Williams retracted his statement at the start of 2023, saying, "You can't retire from music. It's like breathing. It's your life. It's my life. A day without music is a mistake." Williams' Dial of Destiny score is among my favorites in the franchise. The soundtrack contains thrilling hooks, creative variations on old arrangements, and a sense of whimsy that places audiences at the heart of the action. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny contains 2,350 effects shots created and arranged by Industrial Light and Magic. Among the film's most impressive effects, though some would disagree, is the de-aging technology used to depict Indy during World War II. Initially, the scene was 5 minutes long. Then Mangold expanded the sequence to 25 minutes, creating a jaw-dropping display of how far Disney can take us into the uncanny valley. While the effect isn't perfect, it's leaps and bounds ahead of Rogue One's Grand Moff Tarkin incident, the inhuman baby Renesmee of Twilight fame, and Dwayne Johnson's Scorpion King from The Mummy Returns. Over 100 artists worked on the opening sequence for more than 3 years. The team used artificial technology to scan and archive Ford's character from previous films, and a recent scan of Ford's face, de-aged by VFX experts. Next, expert lighting technicians toiled day and night to light the scene, hiding seams with shadow and tempering Indy's complexion using simulated light. It's a stunning sequence and a testament to how far we've come since the days of spirit summoning arcs and Nazis melting faster than a snowman in the Sahara.
Shoot him! Not me! Sorry!
Oddly, some fans took issue with the film's time-traveling mechanic. I say oddly because after encountering dark magic, cannibals, an ageless Grail Knight, and interdimensional beings, you'd think that time travel would be par for the course. Still, some viewers were disturbed by characters accidentally traveling to the Siege of Syracuse in 212 BC, where Archimedes and his compatriots engaged in battle with the Romans. Filmed in Sicily, early rumblings about Romans patrolling the Dial of Destiny set confused fans before the film's release, with many wondering if Mangold's time-traveling mechanic was too far-fetched for an Indy movie. Thankfully, the Siege of Syracuse sequence presents one of the film's strongest emotional payoffs, as Indy attempts to convince Helena to leave him in the past. Unfortunately for Dr. Jones, remaining in the past would create a time paradox, possibly rewriting future events to catastrophic effect. Aware of the damage Indy could cause by staying behind, Helena knocks her godfather out with some chin music and returns him to his proper time and place.
You're meant to be here, Indy. Here.
For who?
When Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny premiered at the 76th Cannes Film Festival, the film received a 5-minute standing ovation alongside mixed reactions from critics. The tepid response to Mangold's sequel quickly spread like wildfire across the internet, sowing seeds of doubt in fans and press members awaiting their early screenings. Adding to the film's weak reception was a call to boycott Dial of Destiny for a list of peculiar reasons. Some in the boycott camp claim Mangold used the film to take political potshots by having Helena point out the process of capitalism when talking about how the Antikythera exchanged hands throughout history. Others say Dial sold its soul to set up spin-off potential for Helena while reducing Indy to an angry, washed-up drunk.
You don't recognize me, do you?
Whatever I did, I apologize.
The list continues, but I'll leave it up to you to tumble down that dark rabbit hole. Despite its franchise legacy, Dial of Destiny underperformed with a global total of $384 million against the long-gestating project's $294.7 million budget.
I miss the desert. I miss the sea. And I miss waking up every morning wondering what wonderful adventure the new day will bring to us.
This is not an adventure, Sala. Those days have come and gone.
It isn't easy to share a positive opinion about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny without feeling like Flynn Rider from that Surrounded by Swords meme, but here I am. I enjoyed the hell out of Ford's Swan Song when I saw the movie in theaters, and liked it even more on my most recent rewatch. Is it the ideal ending? Probably not, but what were the chances of this project satisfying Indy fans from every faction? I applaud the Indiana Jones franchise for never shying away from the character's age, and think Dial of Destiny makes excellent use of the senior adventurer's experience and world weariness, like Woody's fear of being replaced by Buzz Lightyear.
Once the astronauts went up, children only wanted to play with space toys. I know how that feels.
Indy feels like a cobweb-covered relic in an age of space races, rock star worship, and cult-related serial killings. Dial of Destiny taps into the aging explorer's insecurities, but once the race to recover the Antikythera gets rolling, he's reborn alongside scrappy, torch-carrying companions. While not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, with Shawnette Renee Wilson's Agent Mason all but wasted, uneven emotional beats and strained nods to previous films in the franchise, Dial of Destiny still manages to feel like a roller coaster fueled by thrills and nostalgia. I love seeing the band back together, as fleeting as Marion and Salah's roles might be. Mangold's film sets out to remind fans of the good times, while closing the book on one of cinema's most memorable characters, and Dial of Destiny delivers on those fronts and more.
Does it hurt?
Everything hurts.
I know how that feels.
Well, where doesn't it hurt?
Here. It doesn't hurt here.
Expectations can act like a poison while anticipating the end of an era, especially for something as iconic as the Indiana Jones franchise. I think Dial of Destiny is a great Indiana Jones film, and I shudder to think of when we'll get another adventure film series worthy of spanning 4 decades of change. May your contributions to cinema and the imaginations of fans and filmmakers be long remembered, Dr. Jones. Thanks for everything, and rest knowing your place in history is shining, immovable, and eternal.
Thanks for putting up with me.